Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Wacom session. Actually, this is a workshop for Cartoon Crunch. My apologies. But it feels like a Wacom session because we're all here together again. We're gonna just wait a few moments for the Zoom room to fill in. While we wait, I want to invite everybody to join us next week for our Cartoon Crunch mini-series. It's gonna be a fun series where we have daily episodes that show the troubles and traumas that go along with the creation of an animated show. So please join us and watch 8 young animators create something incredible with the help of some really fun people. One of them is joining us today, Blaise.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Travis. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, can people see me yet or no?
We are seeing my screen and we may see you on the tiny little...
Oh, I see the tiny little screen up there. Yes.
We're just waiting for the room to fill before we begin. Thank you to our sponsors, Toon Boom and Annex Pro. This is an animation workshop with your mentor, Blaise. I'll let Travis introduce himself in a second. I'm your host, Elizabeth Garcia, Community Manager for Wacom. This session will last around an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on Travis' energy and depending on your questions as well. Please use the Q&A feature on Zoom to submit your questions. I will also be looking at the chat, but if you have specific questions, I encourage you to use the Q&A. This session will be recorded and available for later viewing on our YouTube. Thank you for attending. And we do have, for those of you watching, some specials available for Intuos Pro Medium, Wacom One through B&H, our wonderful partners. And another special through Annex Pro in Canada. So B&H for USA and Annex Pro for Canada. Please take note of the promo codes. And without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Travis can take over. Hello, we see you now.
Oh, you see me now. Okay, awesome. How's everybody doing today? I see, I'm looking over it and seeing, I see the chat room open up right now. So I just wanted to see, am I able to see how many people are in this chat room?
Yeah, we have around 80 participants on the Zoom right now. We're also sharing this on Facebook. So we have people joining us on Facebook. And if anybody in the chat can please share with us where you're joining us from. I'm in Portland, Oregon. Travis, where are you?
I am in Seattle, Washington. So we're not that far from each other.
No, is the smoke up there as well?
Yeah, the smoke is up there as well. Oh, look at this. We got people from Bogota, Philadelphia, we got Belgium, we got Sacramento, Brazil,
New Jersey,
Colorado, Greece, California, Maryland. Wow, we've got all kinds of people in today. This is awesome, guys.
I love it from
El Salvador. We have El Salvador, Philippines, Romania. Wow. Shout out to Romania there.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. You have Travis here in the Pacific Northwest in the US.
Yes.
He's going to spend a nice session with us today, giving us advice, teaching us a little bit of animation, and we'll see if we learn a thing or two. Travis, you're going to be working on a tool called TV Paint, is that right?
Yes, yes. I'll be working today, which is what I typically do, is I'll be working, doing a demonstration using TV Paint. That's my go-to software when I'm doing traditional keyframe animation. So I figured today we could talk about a little bit what I do and then kind of dive into maybe doing some kind of quick walk cycle or something related to an actual project that I'm working on. So what I show you today is something that will actually be used for a video game.
Beautiful, thank you so much. So why don't you kick it off with a little intro for those of in the chat who don't know you and don't know what you do, and then jump right in.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Travis Blaise. I have a company called Sketch to Animate. I have been, I'm an artist and animator, director and character designer. I kind of do it all. I started in this animation industry in 1990. So if that gives you a little figure of how old I am. I started in the industry when I was 20 years old, so I just officially became 50 this year. So I've been over 30 years into this industry. Started on Beauty and the Beast as an artist, and then eventually became an animator from Lion King, Pocahontas, Aladdin. I started animating on Pocahontas, and from Pocahontas all the way through Lilo and Stitch, I worked on Stitch. Brother Bear, I animated Koda. Tarzan, I worked on Tarzan. I worked on Frollo for Hunchback. Mulan, I did all the Huns and the bad guys, working with the late Press Romanillis on that show, on that production. So for the first 14 years of my career, I was actually a Disney animator. And then from there, I moved on to the world of TV animation, where I worked for Cartoon Network, and I was an animator and story artist for a show called Class of 3000, which was something that came out in 2007-ish. And then from there, I kind of broke into the story world, and I became a story artist. And so from story, my career went from that to working on things like Spaceballs, Big Mouth. I worked on the first season of Big Mouth. I worked on Disenchantment for Matt Groening's. I worked on a few episodes for that. I've worked on feature films. I just recently finished storyboarding for a show that's going to be released called Crypto, or Space Super Pets, for Warner Brothers production. That's going to be coming out in the next couple of years, but that's going to be a release for Warner Brothers. And then I'm currently working full-time at Netflix doing that. But on top of that, I'm also doing my own productions, one of which is what I'm going to share with you today, which is sort of doing some animation demo of a video game that I'm working with a small company in Germany that's doing a Kickstarter. So they called me up, they asked me if I'd be a part of it. I liked what they were doing, so I said, sure, why not? I got free time among all my other things that I'm doing. So, and I'm also an educator, so I have a website that's called Sketch to Animate. And if you guys, some of you may know me, I do a lot of live feeds where I teach artists like yourself or people out there how to become animators and storytellers in the field of animation. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There you have it, guys. Very impressive resume.
Thanks.
I'm a fan. So I'm excited. I'm excited because we haven't really worked on TV Paint in our webinars before, and I'm excited to see what you got. I love TV Paint.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I can share a few things with you guys today because, like I said, typically what I do is I like to kind of go in and use TV Paint as my go-to program. I have a website, YouTube site, where for the last 22 Wednesdays, I was doing a live development on how I develop an animated show. And I'm actually developing an animated show. Oh, sounds like I've got construction going on. So if you hear some weird noises, that's just because there's construction going on outside. So I apologize ahead of time for that.
No
but
worries.
I've been sharing my process of how to develop an animated show to people, which I just recently stopped doing. I'm taking a little hiatus from that before I kick back into doing it again. But I have 22 basically episodes on my YouTube channel on me going through from script, going into storyboarding, character designing, and layout, and talking about how I approach developing a TV show. So that's one of my side things that I do. And then on Mondays, I do this Monday night draw-over session on Twitch, where I have artists like yourself submit work to me, and I do draw-overs, and I share with them my feedback and how they can improve their art or improve their storyboards or animation. And so that's kind of a little bit of what I do. So doing draw-overs and doing animation examples like I'll be doing today is something that I typically do during my week. So this will be fun.
For everyone watching, in the chat, we have shared Travis's channel so that you can check him out and his website. He's a mentor all around, not just here through this program. He's always teaching.
Yes.
So please visit his channels and take advantage of his wealth of knowledge that he has to offer. Thank you.
Yeah. So how would you like to move forward with this today, Elizabeth?
You run the show because you are the expert. I say you start with your walk cycle. I'm excited to see that. And
okay.
As you are showing us, I'm going to be jumping in with some questions from the audience since you are a pro and you can talk and teach at the same time.
Absolutely. So today, everybody, what I wanted to do was kind of give you a little tidbit of what I do typically. And you'll find more of this when you go to my channel on Monday nights on Twitch. But Sketch to Animate is the brand that I created, which is an extension of who I am as a person, which is I wanted to start giving back to the community of artists and animators. And similar to what my older brother, Aaron Blaise, does with Creature Art Teacher, which, by the way, I have a tutorial for them that's been launched on his website. I'm trying to develop my own animation content, as well as I'm someone who's also in the industry that's currently working. So I'm full-time with Netflix, but at the same time, I'm developing this brand, Sketch to Animate, to kind of help people and educate and inspire them to tell their stories through the art of animation. So what I wanted to do today, and I'll go ahead and share the screen, is share with you, because I was an animation mentor for the Cartoon Crunch series that you'll be seeing through this webinar. I think it's next week that you guys are showcasing the mini series. Is that correct?
Yeah, next week. It's next week.
Yeah. So for 2 days out of the webinar for that web series, I was animation mentor for the 2 teams. So I was there to kind of guide them and help them and help them with their animation and staging for that. So you'll be able to get the chance to see a little bit more of what I do there. But today I thought it would be fun, rather than to do a lot of talking, I'll just start showing you a basic concept of how I'm approaching animation. And in terms of this, I've never worked in a video game before. Actually, I take that back. I worked on a video game, and I'll share my screen real quick. Let's see here. Desktop. Here we go.
Travis,
you can.
the audience is asking if you're Aaron Blaise's brother.
Yes, for everybody who wants to know, yes, I am the younger, prettier brother to Aaron Blaise. Yes, Aaron and I both worked in the animation industry together. As a matter of fact, you can see that's one of my original art pieces back there behind me. This is my workspace. But him and I worked together in animation. He was my boss at one point when he directed Brother Bear. I was also animating Koda during that time. But I started on Beauty and the Beast. He was 2 years ahead of me in the animation industry. So basically, I'm that, you know, if I had a nickel for everyone asked me if I was Aaron's brother, I'm so used to it at this point. But yes, I am the younger brother. And yes, I do animate and draw and character design and do all the other things that Aaron does. So you can see my screen, correct?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
Okay, so essentially, I'm working on this show. So my full-time gig right now is storyboarding. So I teach storyboarding. I'm working on a show called Intergalactic, which is in development, or it's in production. We're allowed to talk about the name of it because it has been released. So we can officially say, yes, I'm working on that show. It is in conjunction with the musical talent of Kid Cudi, which is pretty awesome. And I particularly wanted to work on this project because of the people, and not just the content, but also the people that were involved. And as you get older, any word of advice for that I would give for people just starting out is don't look at just the project, look at the people that you're working with. The team is just as important, if not more important, being able to gel and work well with others, and being able to work with a crew that's pro artists than it would be to be the opposite of that. So, but on the side, I do animation. So I decided to work on this project, and I'm going to I'm gonna switch it over to this, and I'll just loop this walk cycle so you can see it. A friend of mine approached me and said, hey, would you be willing to work on a video game concept? I said, well, I don't have a lot of time. And I said, well, can you tell me a little bit more about it? And so they're a small startup company. They want to do this Kickstarter. It was a frog. He's got this whole story. He was telling me about it, and it really intrigued me. And I thought, you know, I love frogs and I love animating animals. And I thought it'd be a fun adventure to try to do something a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I'm creating basically loop cycles of things that will be part of the action of a character that will be in this Kickstarter for this side-scrolling 2D video game, tentatively called King of Frogs. And we'll be announcing more of that later as I go through further into this. They'll be launching, I think, in the beginning of the new year, the actual Kickstarter for this project. But the character, they said, hey, you can help design the character, and then you can help animate the character. So I thought, this is great. This will be a fun job, and I can incorporate it into my everyday work, which I can promote it. And so that's why I thought it'd be a great opportunity to kind of show you guys today how I approach and animate new concepts. So what you're seeing here right now is essentially a character that I designed. And because I designed it, I'm able to kind of quickly go in and figure out the mechanics of what I want to do. So one of the first things I always tell people when you're working on something new, one of the first things you need to figure out is get comfortable with the character's shapes, get comfortable with who the character is, what the personality is. And so the first thing that we did is we did a lot of concept art. We did a lot of concept drawing of this character. And as a matter of fact, I can probably share with you a couple of things before I dive into this animation. What we had to start with before I actually created this walk cycle. Now, I've told this to a lot of people. This particular walk cycle, blocking this particular walk cycle out, this iteration, probably took maybe 2 hours to do. But it might seem fast, but at the same time, I might have done literally 20 different passes of stuff I didn't like before I got to this version that I did like. And this version took about 2 hours. But I probably spent another 8 to 10 hours just redoing and redrawing and redrawing. And if anyone knows me, I don't have a problem erasing or deleting and starting all over again because my brain is like very in fast mode all the time. So I don't have a problem deleting something. Where I had the gentleman that I'm working with, he was watching me animate this character, and I spent an hour animating it, and I just deleted it. And he looked at me, he says, why'd you do that? I said, because it wasn't working. He goes, but how are you going to do it again? He says, watch. And I redrew it again. And he was like, how'd you do that? I said, well, it's just, you know, muscle memory. But this is sort of the character that we started off with. And I'm going to share with you just a little bit about, let's see if I can find him. This is King of Frogs. So our initial design for King of Frogs here, if I can find this, where are you? So we had, there it is. We had this initial design of what the frog was. And we started realizing that it didn't feel quite the character that it wanted to be, that it wasn't frog-like enough, and it was more humanoid looking. And so as we were kind of going through this, these different iterations, I started drawing. It's funny, you start drawing for 20 hours, the same thing over and over again, and then all of a sudden you do one thing and it changes the whole concept of what you were doing before. And so this would have been the original concept of some of the artwork and designs that we did. And then from there, I wasn't quite happy with it. So I wanted to figure out something that was a little bit better. So I'm trying to find the right one here so you guys can see this. Is that it? Nope, that is not it either. Where are you? It always happens when I want to do something here and then I don't get to show the right one. You know what? Rather than do that, I'll just draw it. That'll be easier for me because I like doing that. So cancel. New. So the character was originally this sort of shape design where we had the legs, and it had sort of like this. Knock this down a little bit. It had sort of like this shape, and we didn't quite like this shape design, this language, so we wanted something to be more frog-like. So I basically drew this frog, and I shortened up the body a little bit, and I widened the eyes a little bit, and I made the top part a little bit more frog-like. And then I said, you know what, let's just go crazy and let's make really long legs. And so when I started doing this, something started to click for the director and for me, and I thought, oh, this would be fun to draw a character that has more of a realistic, not realistic, but more of a frog-like feature, like so, in the face, rather than going from what we had before, which was eyes more in the front and a mouth like this, and then a cheek like this. That was the initial drawing that they wanted to kind of go with in terms of shape design. And then instead of this, we went with this at the top, which is more of like, I felt like a more realistic frog. And then from there, we just created this body shape that was like so. And so from there, we were able to kind of feel like we had something that we could work from. And here I go. I'm going to delete all this stuff real quick so you can see the new thing. And so from there, we had, I'll go this pose right here. We had essentially created a design that we thought was workable. And I'll turn this one off so you can see this. Turn that off, that back on. So we created a shape language that we liked, that was going to be fun to animate. And so that's why when I drew this character, I really enjoyed the idea of the longer legs and the shorter body. And there's something appealing about not making things even and kind of doing things in thirds. So like the legs are 2/3 or a little bit more than, or 3/4 of the body. The body is maybe 1/4 of the overall height of the character. And having that sort of opposite in terms of proportions made the character more interesting and gave it a little bit more appeal as a character, as opposed to if I was to draw the character looking more like this, where the arm and the legs were a little bit shorter. To me, it wouldn't be as interesting looking in terms of shape as if you had the character like this, shorter body. And if you notice, everything is sort of like 1/3 of this, and then the longer legs created a more interesting look, where it's like this would be 1/3, you know, the body, and 1/3 of the legs. And that's kind of the proportions that we felt like were working aesthetically for the shape language of this character. So one of the things I always say when I'm starting a character or a new shot or a new scene is that you want to really get familiar with how you want to approach the character design. If you have a model sheet already, to work with, it's always good to kind of really draw as much as you can and find the simplicity of the shape language of that character you're going to design before you actually start animating it. So once we figured out these proportions, I could then easily go into this and start blocking out this walk cycle that I currently have right here. And what was interesting, the approach to this character is, how do I create a character that's not just a generic walk, but because he's longer legs, and he's crouched and he's a little bit nervous, I've got a story to tell. Now he's like, okay, he's somebody that has a torch, he's gonna be wearing a cape, and he's gonna be going through this underworld of stuff, and he's unsure of himself. What kind of a walk do I need to create that kind of emulates that? At the same time, mechanically, he's really long-legged, so he's got to, and with really long feet, so he's got to make these bigger strides and have this like floppy kind of foot action going to kind of make it all work. So I'm thinking about all of these different things as I'm putting it into this particular character. Everyone, does that make sense to everybody so far? Elizabeth, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Okay.
We're just watching you here. A lot of people are curious, you know, how you already shared a little bit about focusing on shapes, but do you have any tips on how to draw faster before you start animating?
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do, and I'll do this, I'll show, see if I can find character poses. I think this is what so one of the things that I do once I find the character that I like is I start going through and I start doing really quick gestures. So these are literally 30-second to maybe a minute poses of drawing the character's shapes to get familiar with the character itself. So, you know, it's one thing to draw a character in a singular pose, which is, and getting the right design. The next difficulty level is, can that design that's being created be animatable? And not only can it be animatable, can it be animated in an efficient way that other artists can follow the same design efficiently within the budget and everything else? Because if the more complicated you make something, the more challenging it is to animate it and finish it. So you're constantly, as a character designer, you also have to think about being an animator, because you have to think about how is that character to animate. For me, since I'm character designing and animating it, I'm thinking constantly, is this too difficult? If I was to hand this off to someone else, could they take on that project? Could they animate it as well as me? That's always been the challenge when you work in the world of animation, especially in features. You'd have 35 animators working on all the, you know, up to 35 animators per feature production, working on however many characters there were in the film, like Mulan. You had a cast of hundreds, and we all had to draw consistently or pretty consistently the same. But the truth of it is, not all of us animate the same. So one of the ways to make it all look cohesive is we would have another team of artists called cleanup artists that would basically put everyone's different styles of animation to the singular model that is the look and feel of what Mulan was, or what Aladdin is, or what Beauty and the Beast is. So when it comes to a project like this, since I am the only one animating, it's going to be a little bit easier. Also, aesthetically, we're creating a rough tie down of this character so that the style, the final look and feel of it's going to be a little bit looser than if it was a nice cleanup line. So one of the ways that I tell everyone, when you're developing and designing something new, start moving the character around as quickly as you can. Once you get that design proportions that work well for you, now start going in and start doing really quick gestures of it. Really start, and don't worry about being a perfect, pretty drawing. If you look at these drawings right here, they're not pretty. They're just putting shapes around loosely and saying, can this work? can this move? When I do my first passes, they're typically scribbles. But when you see those scribbles in action and movement, you're seeing the gesture and the movement of the character come to life. It starts to make sense. So with here, this is all about putting in really quick poses to kind of help me figure out, is this design working? Can I move it? Can I get him in a crouch position? Can I get him to jump? Because one of the challenges is that he has super long legs. That's one of the big technical difficulties to get around, is having him do actions with the fact that he's so long-legged. You know, he's not going to be he's not going to be the same character that might have shorter legs. So his actions and reactions are going to be completely different. So one of the ways to do that is to go in and do quick gestures like what I'm showing you here on how to pose out that character.
Travis, how do you keep the shape and size of your drawings consistent?
So it's a lot of trial and error. So for instance, if I go into this one and I'll show you, so let's see if I can find some iterations of this one earlier. And this is the one that I liked. So that's the one I did. I think some earlier ones, let's see here. Get rid of this. There we go. So I think one of the first iterations I did of this was drawing. Oh, what's going on here? Why is this not working now? Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Oh, because it's not on the right layer. So one of the things that I do is I'll start doing loose poses, and sometimes I'll go in and I'll just do, I'll animate an action or a movement. Like, you know, in this case, he's taking out his torch, putting his torch out and putting it into the side of his cape or on his belt. And so I would just go in and draw that action. A lot of times when you animate the first rough poses, I don't worry about, you know, like in this case, I'll show you, this is also part of the other layer that I was showing you earlier. I'll go in and I'll just draw all these different shapes, and sometimes they grow. Sometimes you'll notice if you draw something, and if you do a straight ahead drawing of an action, by the end of that action, you'll look back and play it and find out that your proportions are like 3 times the size of what you originally drawn. So it's always good to kind of, when you do your first pose, like so, like you can see this one here, this was an action where he gets scared and he jumps back and he falls to the ground, and he gets up and he's looking around and he stands back up again. Now you can see like that drawing there got super small. So I would go in and increase the size of this character. Whoop, I got to be on the right layer. There you go. Increase the size of this character so that it fits in proportion. So the beauty of drawing digital is, even if you go in and you have, let's say, I'll get rid of this one here. You know, you start drawing along and the character legs get too big. Let's say I'll do him standing here like this, like so.
Travis, they're asking if there's a way to copy and paste several of the same images and remove areas you want to animate, just to not lose the proportion. They're asking on Facebook if that's something.
Oh, on Facebook, yes, yes. Well, one of the things I was saying, because of digital, if I drew this character, let's say, he's holding out his torch.
And does TV Paint have the onion layer feature? Also,
it does have the onion layer feature, which is great. Which is, again, one of the reasons why I use this. I've also dabbled in Toon Boom, which is a vector-based program. I particularly like working in digital, or I'm sorry, pixel based, like Photoshop. So what I liked about TV Paint is that it had that ability to kind of have that more brush-like feel when I'm drawing. So if, let's say I draw this character like I did just now, and I don't like the size of this character, then yeah, I can go in and I can copy this. And if I want to, let's say, do another key, what I typically do is if I want to do a quick pass, let's say I want to have him standing, I can put the onion skin on like that, which is now you see the onion skins on, and I can draw another character pose of him, you know, standing up, and maybe he's excited.
Do you use reference for your movements, or is it all from your mind?
A lot of this is from my head, especially with this type of character. So, but what I like to do as I'm drawing is I like to do thumbnails. So again, this part of this exploration of the character's design is I'm thinking about animation as I'm designing it, but I'm also like, I'm putting him in positions that I would eventually maybe animate. And so I'm thinking about, oh, maybe those legs are too short. So I can easily go in here, check the scale of this, make sure that this is, you know, pretty accurate in terms of the size of it. And then let's say I made the legs too small like it did, I can go, okay, I'm going to bring his body up just a little bit more, like so. And then I can go in and just erase this and redo my feet so that this is now more in proportion to what his...
Asking, because I keep hearing the same question over and over, guys. He's using TV Paint, and he prefers it over Toon Boom because he doesn't enjoy vector-based. Is that correct?
Yeah, I find that using, you know, again, I'm just dabbling. I just found it that it's a program that I find it working well for me. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't be opposed to using another program. I've just gotten used to using this program. And I would say for others that like keyframe animation, as opposed to symbol, you know, vector-based style animation, the brushes to me work pretty well in terms of how I am approaching my drawing style. But I've used TV, I started using Toon Boom when I was mentoring this past week, and I did actually enjoy using it, which was cool. And I found that it was fun and user-friendly. So now I can, you know, kind of go in and see my different poses. One of the other things that I do when I'm animating this particular character is not just figuring out, you know, my proportions of like, do I have him squashed? You know, if he's squashed down, what would that squash down look like? And I'll do quick gestures just like this, just to feel the action or the gesture that I want to put across for him. And then if I want to, I'll just go through and I'll start designing different, maybe one leg down, maybe one leg is off to the side and he's passed out. You know, what does he look like if he's on the ground, passed out? And I'll start doing quick gestures like so. And then what I like to do after I do these quick gestures, and I'll go in afterwards and I'll start going in and adding on another layer. Well, what would that thumb look like right there? And I'll come in, I'll just do a little bit more of a tied down version of that so I can see if my proportions are working well.
Travis is also working on a Cintiq.
Yes.
There are a lot of people asking on the chat if you need a Wacom or a tablet to animate.
Well, I would say in this situation, I prefer using Wacom because I started when it first came out, and I really like the technology with the pen. That's the big feature that I like about it is their pen sensitivity and what they have to offer with that. And I've grown as the company's grown and they've developed new ideas, new technologies for their monitors. I've kind of grown with that. So I prefer using it. There are other, of course, alternatives, but I think that in terms of what you can do and what you can offer and the different varieties of options that they have for you with Wacom products, I think they're the best thing that's out there, hands down. That's just my opinion. But again, I put a lot of value in what I do in terms of my studio, how I build things and the type of products that I want to use. And everyone's going to be different, but I feel like, Wacom's been my staple, I guess, equipment for the last decade now. And I haven't used anything else other than that. So from here, I can kind of go in and say, okay, I know that this is sort of going from that rough that you see here to more of a tighter rough there. And then what I like to go in there and do is block in the shapes with color just to see how the shapes are looking. Because part of animating your character, especially like that walk that I was showing you, is also making sure that you have good silhouette. And one of the ways that I like doing that is blocking out and putting tone to my artwork. And I do that really quickly like I'm doing right now, so that when I see it as a shape, which you'll see in a second, I can see that if this is working or not. So if I go ahead and hide this, even as a shape, I'm feeling, okay, that leg is clear, the feet are clear, everything seems to work as a shape design. So that allows me to see if I'm working if that shape language or that silhouette is clear enough and works well enough. One of the things you have to, especially in the walk cycles, like I'm doing on this one, I'll hide this and play that walk cycle again. Oh, I'll show you that. This is funny. I did another iteration of that run where I just started doing more of a stretchy, squashy. You can kind of see I just initially started to do the first bounce of the run, and I wanted to create more of what would his character look like if he really squashed his feet, or over his face, if it was overlapping action. So as he's running, his mouth is still catching up with the previous action, so it's dragging and creating this like really bouncy, squishy, squashy kind of feel, like almost like rubber hose. So when he hits the ground, you see that crazy gesture drawing, like so, and it comes down and it drops. And this is literally how I would draw my first pass, to kind of see if that action or that idea is working well. Does anybody have any more questions while I'm doing this?
Do you have experience as a cleanup artist?
I do. I was a cleanup artist from Beauty and the Beast to essentially Aladdin, and then Lion King. I was working as an artist on Lion King, and then let me get rid of these. And then from I would say Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin, and then Pocahontas was the first one that I actually became an animator to work on, as an animator in training, I guess. And then from there, I went in and and homed into my skills. I worked on villagers and settlers on Pocahontas, and then from there I went in and my big break in terms of animating a really juicy character would have been Frollo. I got an opportunity to work with Kathy Zielinski, who was the supervisor, and then at the time, you guys all know Klaus, the movie Klaus that came out, Sergio Pablos, who directed that. He was one of the animators in Paris at the time, working on that. So I got to see his work for the first time, which blew my mind because he was so talented. And then of course his career, went from there. But from that point on, but everything from Pocahontas forward, I was a character animator, and everything before that, I was a cleanup artist for. So I did have an experience on doing like nice, clean lines. What I was going to show you is, and these are the next poses that I was planning on doing. Oh, why is this not working again? Because I'm on the wrong layer. These are the first poses that I was working on for the next action, which is if this character was going to be crouching down, if something swoops down on him, or he gets scared, he's going to duck and look around. So I created simple poses to kind of figure out his actions. And that's how I'm going to kind of approach all of this. These are sort of my thumbnails / rough poses. So I'll go in from here. If I wanted to, I'll go in and I'll do another pass of this where he's standing there, and I might go ahead and draw something a little bit more cohesive. Drop that. And I might put more of a scared look on his face. From here, if he ducks down, I might have his eyes do this. And then what I will do is, because he's ducking down to this pose down there, what I'd like to go do is start breaking down rough poses in between all of this. So I'm going to take this real quick and move this out.
Hi, Travis. This is Shireen from
Yes.
the Wacom team. I'm taking over for Elizabeth.
Okay.
We actually
okay?
had a question come in.
Sure.
They're asking, can you talk about those segments drawn in a rough animation showing each frame duration?
All right. Say that one more time.
It says, can you talk about those segments drawn in a rough animation showing each frame duration?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for instance, if you were to look at this, and I'll delete this and I'll bring this up. If you were to look at this pose, this would be my first blocking. Like he ducks, he's going to duck down and he's going to look around, and then he's going to get back up and it's going to loop back into the same pose. So and I'll play it for you. What I did is I started blocking out the time. Once I get the poses that I like, the first thing that I do is I design the character, do some loose passes to get used to the shape language. The second thing that I would say before I even start this is, and I'll do it right up here, is thumbnail out your character. If the character is here, and thumbnail meanings, you can keep it as simple as what I have here, like a stick figure. If the character is here in this pose with the torch up, and you want him to duck down, I might do like an excited, like ah. And then I might have him then do an action line where I'm going, okay, he's gonna do a little antic, like so, and then he's gonna duck down. He might squash his eyes. I might have his eyes squash. Like so, and I might go 1, 2, 3, and then from there, I might have him looking up like I have where his hand is here, and he's got the torch up here. And all the whole while I'm doing this, I'm keeping these really simple loose stick figures to kind of help me figure out what my basic blocking is going to be. And this is what I call just loose thumbs for your character animation poses. And then I'll just number them in sequential order. Okay, I want him to, he's standing there, he does a little anticipation, then he ducks down, and then he settles up and he's looking around. So what I did for that then is I went in and I created this pose where he ducks down here. So from here, what I will do is then do a rough timing and say, okay, now that I've got these quick poses, let's time this out to see what the overall action is going to be, because I'm also thinking I have to do my anticipation. I'm going to have time for settling and squashing before going into these. So I'm creating, blocking out basic poses before adding a lot of the overlapping actions. I'm just trying to, again, it's called pose to pose animating. So I'm blocking out poses to help me figure out the staging and proportions to work properly. And that will be my initial pass. And then from there, I'll go in, I'll knock this down lighter, and I'll go in. And once I've timed it out, which you see here, you see I've held this for 16 frames or 17 frames, and then it goes on to my other pose, which is I've held all the other poses for around 12 frames to 10 frames. You can see I've held this one for 8 frames and another 10 frames. And I'm trying to find a nice sweet spot that feels good for each moment or beat within the action before I go in and I start doing a second pass, which is going to be more of the anticipation and stretching and squashing, which is what I'll be doing right now. So from here, I'll just do one. From here, I would go in and keeping this pose the way it is on that layer and then adding a new layer. I can go in and I'll just do a quick, this is when I'll start doing more of a gestural pass. With my character. And then, because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this part, I'm trying to get what is in my head on papers or digital as quickly as possible. So from here, I might have him go like, get excited.
Travis,
And then
do you recommend
yes.
any books for animation for anyone who's just starting out?
The Richard Williams survival kit, the animator's survival kit or guide. I'm butchering the name at the moment, but that's a great book for anyone learning animation for the first time. If you want to really learn the basics of animation and from a professional who was a brilliant, one of the most brilliant animators of his time. Richard Williams is a great reference. His book is a great reference to look at. And they also have, I think, video tutorials of that as well that are supposedly really, really good to look at as on top of that. So there's also a video tutorials part of it. I had an opportunity to meet him 2 years ago during Annecy and had dinner with him, and he was just a brilliant guy. And I worked with his son and daughter who are also in the animation industry that are trying to carry on with his legacy as animators and artists. So from here, like I said, I'm going in and I'm trying to quickly dive in within that time that I created between each pose to really stretch down and figure out a really quick gesture, because he's going to eventually go into this pose which is, I'll bring this here. I'm going to pose this out, time this out a little bit, and drop this down and have this on ones. I'm going to bring this over slightly so I can see my action between the two poses, because he's going to go below this pose, which is here. He's going to go below that pose and then come up and settle into this. So this is what he's going to eventually settle into in terms of this pose. And I'll just do a quick drawing over that. Now, I don't expect anyone to animate quite this fast when you're trying to do something, but it's good when you're starting out. The better you plan your actions and what you're trying to get across to convey, the better off you're going to be in getting a successful animation. So take the time to really plan your shots out before you move into just diving in and animating. Now, it's good to always, it's good to explore and come up with concepts like the way I did. But when you're first starting out, I'm thinking my poses, I'm thinking, what's the story that I'm trying to tell and his actions, and how does this convey it as an artist? How am I conveying this? Does it translate the way I want it to translate? And so one of the ways, again, what I do is, like, you can see how scribbly these actions are. So as he's moving down, maybe I'll have his foot slip over.
Joshua wants to know, typically, how many in-betweens do you draw for the key poses?
It just really depends on the action. Like right now, I'm literally just drawing. I'm thinking of anticipation. Every time there's a change in direction in terms of where the character is moving, you want to create a new pose. So other than the subtleties of overlap, if he's going to anticipate, he's going to go up a little bit. Well, that extreme up before he drops down, I'll draw that pose. And then I'll draw maybe another pose where it's a third out of that. And then another pose where it's going into the last one. And then when he settles back up, he'll then go into the other key. So he's going down. And then the fact that he's coming down here like this, I might stretch the arms out a little bit. You can see how loose and simple that drawing looks, but it will actually work when you see it in motion. And so I will do a anticipation where squash, where he settles down. Oop, here. Now, sometimes I like to do a little drag of add in the flames where I need to. And then I'm going to bring this over just a little bit more.
Iris is wondering, do you recommend to check the arcs and the motion path?
On this pass, I just draw it really quick. And then on my third pass, I'll start really finessing the arcs. I'll start figuring out where the arcs are going to be, where I can push things. Because a lot of times, again, the quicker I can get something down and look at the rough pose, like you just saw me do that little bit right here. And so I'll play it to 30 to see if this is working or not working. So I'll go ahead and play this back. And let's actually hide this layer real quick. And I want it, when I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that this needs to, I need to do a duck right here, a duck down, then up, and then down into this pose. And already I can see that as it's ducking down, I want to go in and erase this drawing and add maybe a stretch. And then maybe even push the arc on this a little bit. So that I can see if that, boom. Now it feels like it's stretching a little bit and coming in. But even before I do this, I already realized I'm gonna add more time because I don't think there's enough time for that opening. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this out to here. And then from here, this pose, I'm gonna do a slight anticipation down where he's coming very, very subtly down. Like so. And time that out. So you keep that on 3s. And I already know that the way he's coming in, I want to really go into that pose a little bit more. So I might really get him really scared. And then squash his face down a little bit more before he starts to go up. He's going to actually start going up now, but I'm doing a little overlapping action with his face. And then he's going to start to come up. Let's see, I'll move this. And you can see how I'm reworking and working and just keeping it loose to kind of figure out my second and third passes. So once I block something out really loose, and it doesn't always work, I just go in, because I'm doing it super loose, I can then erase it and go in and draw it again. So now he's coming up and he's starting to come down. So now I can kind of go in here, see, add, boom, up. And then from here, I can do maybe one more pose where he's going into the action.
William wants to know, how do you decide which camera angle to use for each scene?
It really comes, well, that all goes into the storyboarding. So when you're animating a scene, which is something that I do for a living, which is storyboarding, is, you're always going to have, let's say, here's your storyboard up at the top. And let's say my staging loosely is the characters here. And then the character runs away and he's down here. But I've boarded this action out. I've got the character running, in that direction. Once I've had this storyboarded scene that's out, and then he ends up stopping right like so. he starts here and then he ends up here. I'm just giving you a simple analogy of if this was a storyboard, then I know that when I do my animated scene, you know, my staging compositionally, the character, you know, is going to be in this position in terms of design, and he's going to end up in this position at the end of it in terms of my layout and my perspective. So I can use this storyboard as my starting point for my composition and staging to go in and animate. So everything typically starts with storyboards as you're going in before animating an actual film or a feature or a TV show. Now, when it comes to what I'm learning when it comes to video games, I'm creating an action that's going to be placed in an environment that's going to be constantly changing. So we know that in the video game, we want him to always be in a 3/4, either 3/4 front or 3/4 behind. In this case, I think we've talked about the rules of the game. The rules are the character can't be, if he turns around, he'll turn around in space, but he'll always end up back into that 0 pose or that resting pose. That's going to be like a 3/4 front. So I know that all of my animation and actions have to come in and out of eventually a 3/4 pose, because for the gameplay, it's going to be going left or right, and you want to have that action. So I know as an animator, okay, those are my actions. That's where my position is going to be, but I don't have to create an environment. I just know that, you know, if he's going to grab onto something or the side of something, whether it's a cliff or a tree, it's generally going to be the same angle and position, so that when they go and line this up in with the environment, when they do the gameplay, it's going to match up relatively good. But I'm essentially creating animations without, you know, without having the borders of a, you know, 1920 by 1080 format, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's quiet because I don't hear anybody. It's all chat room stuff.
I'm still here with you. We actually have a question coming from Facebook. Timothy wants to know, is this all off the top of your head, or are you working with a script or storyboard of some kind?
This particular thing I'm doing is all I'm just doing this improv. It's all live. It's just off the top of my head. So yes, I'm just kind of giving you a kind of a general idea, which is great because who knows, maybe I'll be able to use this for something else. I'll be able to use this actually for the gameplay. But essentially, yes, this is me messing around for you guys as a sort of a quick demo. So as I'm doing this, he's going up, down. I'll just do one more pose into this one. And you can see that all I'm doing right now is literally just scribbles. And that's all I'm wanting it to do right now. I'm not going to draw in everything because this is going to be an in-between, and it's just a partial to kind of fill in some gaps for where the animation is going to eventually be. And then I can go in and say, okay, I like that. Let's, again, I'm increasing my timing because I know that as I'm building this anticipation, I'm thinking about, oh, I need time for that anticipation to read. I need time for that rest pose to read. He goes up and then down. So if I play that, let's see here. I'll just do one more pose where he's going into, you know, again, this one, I might even have his head. Maybe his head comes down and starts to turn, his eyes start to open up a little bit. want his hand to plant. His legs to be in the position it needs to be in. And these are the poses that no one else will ever see except for when you do a tie down pass. When I'm showing, if I was working in a traditional pipeline for traditional animation, I would show this first loose, rough pass to the animator, the supervisor, because the supervisor gets it. He understands that what you're doing is you're getting the action down and not worrying about proportions at the moment. You're trying to get the overall arcs. As long as those first two poses are working well, a lot of times when we do a draw over, the artist, the supervisor will go, you know, he'll start with the first pose and go, okay, when you do this animation that I like, make sure that it looks in this proportion. He might do a draw over of the first pose, you know, this pose, and then he might do a draw over of like maybe that pose, and then maybe this last pose. And then that's all he'll give me. And he says, I like this action, change the timing a little bit, follow these proportions when you go to tie down, and then I'll go in and animate and tie it down. So that's been kind of that draw over process that I talk about, that I offer on Monday nights. That's something that we typically do in the industry. When I am working as a story artist with a director, and I just pitched this morning to Netflix, he'll take over my Zoom call and he'll say, hey, boom, boom, boom. He'll start drawing over my boards. He says, hey, let's move this character over here and just put it over this way. Let's make this a little bit of a wider shot and let's move it over here. That process, that directing that he's doing is called the draw over process. That is used in every facet of animation production, from cleanup to backgrounds to layout design. All of those things is what I call the draw over process. And what I'm simply offering for students and young artists on my channel is an opportunity for somebody like me to kind of take a look at one of their shots or storyboards or character designs and do just that, draw over it, without taking away the intent of what they want to do, but to give them a professional's viewpoint of what they could do with it or how to enhance what they already have. So in this case, with this character, I wanted to make sure that there's that little dip going down before he comes back up. And then I'll time that out right there. And I'll maybe add one more loose drawing. And I'll take this, I'm gonna hide this right here. And of course, you guys, I can put the onion skin on, which is right here to the left of me. And I can see the two poses. So now if I wanted to watch my arcs, I typically try not to do it the first go around because I don't want it to be a hindrance of my performance. So I'm just sort of feeling it. I'm more of a like an instinctual feeler of the pose in action. And so it doesn't always hit the mark, but it's me about trying to feel out instinctually what the action is going to be before I actually start animating it and getting all mechanical with it. Because at the end of the day, then what takes the time is tying it down, finessing the volumes, getting the arcs working correctly. That's what takes a long time to do. The hard part though is the hard part is doing this. It's getting the right action down. The more time consuming part that's not as difficult, just time consuming, is the mechanical, making sure everything's in volumes are correct. All of those things that you want to have the character, you know, because that's going to be the final look and feel of it. So you want to make sure that's perfect. That's going to take time. So let's see how this looks as it goes up. And I'll go to 51. Now we've increased the timing to 51 frames. And now I can go in here and just take a look and see. So that beginning part is slow. So I can, now I feel like the actions are there, but now what I want to do is I want to speed it up. I want to speed up the timing of it. I want to go in and I want to say, you know, that's fine. Let's drop this to here. let's get this to 2s. Now let's drop this to 1. Same here. Let's make this a 2. Or let's add this a 3. And then this can drop down to a 1 because I'm going to quickly, and you know, I can do a really nice stretch drawing in here and then keep that at 2 to maybe add a 3 to that. And then 4, and then so on. So now I basically got rid of 3 frames. So let's take a look at that 48 and see if that makes a difference in terms of how this action feels. So I took out 3 drawings, but already you can see that anticipation going up. I don't want to spend a lot of time in there. I want to get him down to that pose, but I want to feel like there's an overlapping action happening. So now he drops. And so that has a roughly good idea of what I want for the action. And we've done this action in 40, looks like 48 frames is what that action is so far. So from there, what I would do is I would do a whole nother pass over that where I'm having drags and overlaps because he's wearing a cape, which adds another complexity. If you notice on my walk cycle, I didn't put the cape or the torch in. This whole entire time, you're gonna have a torch like this, and you're gonna have a flame cycling. So I'm gonna have to create a cycle of a flame moving, right, with little bits of smoke. And then as he moves, it's gonna react to his movement. So if he ducks down like he's doing here, you know, this will trail a little bit. Let's say I'll add a little bit of flame right here. And then we'll have a little trail of the flame. It'll come up as it reacts. And then the flame's coming back. It's still reacting. And then you may have some trails of flames going up as it goes in like this. And I'm treating that very loosely. Again, now the fire is trailing up. This is breaking apart as it's coming down because it's going through the air. And then another breaking apart. And then this might break apart, and then I might even do a little squash with the flame itself before it goes back into its torch mode, which it'll loop back into that cycle that I would have created for it, which is, see right here, I'll just do it right there, which then it'll go back into that cycle. So whenever he's in a hold position for any length of time, it's going to go back into that normal loop animation that I'll have to create for that. And every time there's a movement or action, just like he's going in and out of his 0 pose, I'm also going to have to create a settling action for that. So now if you play that, let's get rid of this. Oh yeah, it's right there. Let's get rid of that real quick. And so that's essentially my first rough pass of going into it. And eventually it'll eventually look really smooth and organic, and it'll have all that nice texture and feel that I want to have incorporated into it. Do I have any questions anymore from other artists as I'm talking about this?
Yes, we have a couple more questions. This looks really
Sure.
great though. I love his little expression though when he hits the bottom and he's looking up. He looks very spooked. So
Awesome.
we do have a question from Mark. Mark wants to know, at what point do you start thinking about clean lines?
When I start thinking about clean lines, once I feel comfortable with the arcs, the ideas of the actions, even with this, I won't fully tie it down yet. I'll go in, and I'm showing you right now. I'll go down on another layer, and I'll go in and I'll start adding little extra textures and things that I might have thought about before. Maybe there's going to be an eye blink in here. At this point, I could tie this first pose down. Now that I know essentially what I want. What he's going to eventually look like, and I can draw him really quick here. What he's going to eventually look like is he's going to have a cape or a hood right here. He's going to have a little ear shape right there. He's going to come in. He's going to have sleeve. And now all of these, and the thing is that sleeve, that hood, all these little things, they're all going to have to be animated. So that's why I'm trying to get the general shape of what he's doing with his action, with his hands, his body, working first before I go in and add, all of these extra nuances to the animation itself. So he's also going to have a little strap that's going to overlap and react to his action. So, he's also got this little skirt or long shirt that goes underneath his, that kind of hides his legs, that goes underneath his belt when he goes in. So all of that is going to be things that have to go and animate. And I'll worry about that stuff once I start to tie it down. And I'll start thinking, and once I've nailed down the really overall good action of what he's having when he does a duck and he does the anticipation, from there I can go in and add loosely, and I'll probably add those in as a separate layer as well. So while I'm keeping this initial pose, I might go in and add, I might draw this in. I'll take this out real quick so you can see this. And this all depends on how complicated your character is. All of these overlapping actions like the belt and all of these things, the skirt, I might consider putting these on a separate layer altogether. And the one thing that I'll tie down is maybe I'll just tie down this shape initially, even the sleeve. I'll keep the sleeve separate. And I might just keep the general shape of the character like so.
Louise from Facebook wants to know, do you ever use chart timing?
I do use chart timing. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I should talk about that. I have a lot of back to basic tutorials that if you go to my website, YouTube site, which is Sketch to Animate or youtube.com/sketch-animate, you'll see my back to basic tutorials. I'll go in, I'm going to be adding a lot of free tutorials for people to talk about charting. And I do believe I have one thing that talks about that. Also in my tutorial that I have for Creature Art Teacher, I have that as well. But one of the things when you're doing this, if you're handing this off to someone else, it's good to get into a practice of, okay, I know what my key poses are. either in the left or right hand corner, and this is King of Frogs, so I'll say he's, you know, he's KOF, and I'll say pose 1, and I'll circle it as my key. Or you can put it over here, you know, KOF, and call it 0, 1. And then I'll go in, and I know that these are my breakdowns in my extreme. This is my extreme pose, which is 18. I can go in there and say, and I'll just put it up at the top here. I'll put it down at the bottom. KOF 1, 8. And that would be my key. And then if I was to go in and chart this the way it is, to add in because I already blocked in my keys and breakdowns. Now I'm going to go in and figure out what my breakdowns were. So that one, anticipation, he's going up, but his head is coming down. So this is sort of a breakdown key. So that's at frame 15. I'll do KOF 15, or I'm sorry, 14, it looks like. And then this one drops down here. And then that one, this is the key coming down. This would be KOF 12. And because I've sort of blocked out my initial poses and then started blocking out my breakdowns and a couple of in-betweens, I can go ahead and do a chart from here to, let's say, here, where he drops down a little bit. From here, how I would chart that is, this is frame 12 and this is frame 1. I can go in the first over here, and I'll go, okay, here's my chart. This is the next key, which he's dropping down. I can do KOF, circle my key as a 12. And then from there, I can say, hey, I want to hold this pose for, let's say, hold. I'll actually write a hold to frame, let's say 8. So from frame 1 to frame 8, I'm holding this first pose. And then from there, I'm going to do a chart however I want to do it. In this case, I'm going to do a half and a half. So I'm basically from 12 to 1. This next one will now be, let's say, actually, I'll make this a 9. This will be 9. This will be a 10 and an 11. So if this is frame 8, actually, I'll hold it to frame 9. So that'll be held for 9 frames. Then my next chart will be, my next in-between will be on a half going into the next pose, which is 12. And then I'll do another breakdown of that. So once I figure out all of my actions, and I'll bring this up real quick so you can see it. Once I figure out all my actions here, I can then go, okay, this pose right here will then in between a half, into, I'll do a half and another half, cushioning into this drawing. And then I'll do an in-between. This is sort of a key-ish breakdown because there's a lot of overlapping actions happening here. I'll do another in-between that'll go into this to this. This will be like a half. I'll just call it a simple half into 14, which will be 13. And then from this pose to the last pose here, 18, then I can go in and create my next set of charts that match up with what I have here. And by looking what I have here, I can already show you that this drawing is coming up favoring key 14. So since this drawing right here is favoring key 14, I would probably make that chart like so, you know, a third favoring, and I would call this, that would be frame 16. So that would be frame 16, and that would be a third favoring this drawing because it's slowly coming out and then it's going to quickly come up. And then the next drawing might be a third going into 18. So that next drawing would be 17. And I would make this, I would actually probably bring this up closer. And then that would be 16. And I would do one more in between. Actually, because I like, that's a 16 there. That's a 1. I actually would want to put in another, that's 17 and then 18. I would redraw this one to tie it down to make sure that it matches. So this, this is 18, 15, 16, 17. Actually, I got the numberings off. It would be 15, 16, and then 17 would be my key in-betweens for that. And then so from there, I'll just block out, I'll do that same thing throughout the entire rest of the shot for everything else. But I don't typically start blocking out my charts until I've gotten a solid pass that I like. And then I'll sit down and think about the mechanics of what that looks like as a chart before I go into my tie downs. Because even during this phase, I'm making changes constantly. And then I'm erasing the chart and go, oh, I don't like that pose. So then I'll have to erase that chart and do a new chart that says that. So I typically like to keep things loose and then tie it down as close to it as I need to before I put the charts in for the rest of the drawings. So that's something that happens just before the tie down phase. I might circle keys, but charting, I usually typically wait until I know the timing, I know where the arcs are going to be, I know where my partials are going to be, and then I'll put in the charts for that. Again, at this phase, I'll end up making changes. Like this, I'll end up erasing all of this stuff because it's going to end up being different from what I originally did. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. So from here now, you know, I'm just going to go in and figure out what my my pose is going to be. And what the other thing I like to do sometimes when I'm doing stuff like this is I'll block in simple, let's see here, I'll put this right here. I might go in again like I did before, like I was showing you, I'll just go in with a slight gray tone just to see if that's working or not. And this is just something I sometimes do for some of the key poses where I'll just block in something in simple form and then hide and say, does that look like a shape that's working correctly? Oh, did I draw on the wrong layer? Nope, I'll hide it right there. So I'll go in and I'll look at the shape and see if the silhouette looks good. And if that looks good, then I'll keep moving forward with it in terms of the overall design. Here, I'll just finish out. And say, okay, that feels clear. You know, I got a clear silhouette happening. Things look pretty well. I've seen animators even block in and animate like this, animate in shapes like this, like just doing more of a painterly shape and then adding in the details later. That's another approach that some people I've seen do. But typically when people animate like what I'm doing, this is a very typical way of approach. Now everyone's going to draw differently in terms of their drawing abilities, but initially it's thumbnail, flowing, you know, working through your flow of actions of what you want for the character. Let me turn it back on again. Then I'll play this. And then thumbnailing it out, figuring out your thumbnails of what you want to do for the action. And then going in and do quick blocking out of the general poses of the action. And then going in and doing a really quick gestural pass of breakdowns in betweens to show anticipation and flow. And then mess around with your timing. And then going back in and massaging the poses a little bit more. And then once you do that, then you could start charting and tying things down and adding your partials and extra little bits of animation like the fire. The fire will be the very, very last thing that I do. The cape is also the very last thing that I'll do because nothing, the cape and the fire is specifically reactionary to the movement of the character, what's happening. So you want to always leave those things last. Now you can block in general ideas of what the cape is or where it is. Like if I wanted to, I could go in and from here, and I would put it on a separate layer, which I'll do here. I would go in and say, okay, my cape's going to be just like what I did with the flame. My cape's going to be wrapping around here. He'll have a little circle, and then it's going to be a little torn style cape. From there, I might draw this in, and I might even draw this a different color just so I can read it clearer. Make this a blue color, just in terms of clarity, so I don't get it confused with other lines from the character. So as it's coming up, I might go ahead and add his arm and the cape. Might stretch a little bit. Like so.
We're past
yes.
1:30. I just wanted to make sure you're okay to answer a couple last few questions.
Absolutely. Whatever you guys want. I have all the energy in the world, so
awesome.
It's all
we
good
didn't
want
to bleed into your lunch hour or anything, but we have a few last questions as we wrap up here.
Sure.
One from Facebook.
Sure, go ahead.
What's the best way to perfect timing and spacing?
The best way to perfect?
Yes, timing and spacing.
Timing and space. Trial and error. It really comes down to a lot of experimenting. I mean, everything that I animate is a new adventure. Every new character, every new scene, every new shot. It really comes down to knowing your space, right? If I know that this is a 3/4 standing position, like he's in this box, I like to understand what my perspective is. So I'm giving you just sort of a general idea here. I know that his action is going to generally animate within this type of space environment. So I know that my perspective points, whether it's an up shot or if it's a down shot, like so, if you're looking up at something, my viewpoint, my perspective is going to change dramatically from what I just drew, which is more of a straight on, right, 3/4 of the character, like so. So understanding your space, your environment, your perspective, what angle it's going to be at, is going to greatly help you understand what your timing and spacing is going to be for the character that you're going to animate. And then once you know your perspective, where the camera shot and angle is, then it's a matter of figuring out your poses. And this is where you could explore. Like I might even go in and say, you know, this pose right here isn't enough. I might even go a little bit more. I might push his chest out more and go up. But the general idea is there. The general idea in terms of the animation's there. But I might want to push that pose more. So it's massaging the character. The quicker you can thumbnail and plan something out and then block out your poses, the faster you're going to be able to see if it's working or not working. And then from there is what I tell everyone: don't get married to each drawing. Don't fall in love with it. Understand that it's a work in progress. It's like molding clay. It's like sculpting clay. You're adding clay, you're removing clay. If you've ever done real sculpting, there's a lot of taking away and adding to make things work, but you're building on top of a structure. So your gesture is that structure, your final pose and everything is that massaging of taking away and pulling back and adding things in that helps you to see and push what you want. Now, you're always going to find, there's always going to be room for improvement. There's always going to be room for change. And there's always going to be another little slight iteration you could do slightly different that may improve what you're doing. But when it comes into a working professional environment, somebody the other day looked at one of my animations and says, why'd you, does the eyes have to be so small in this fish that you animated? And I said, yeah, because that's what the client wanted. So at the end of the day, if you may not like what you did, but if the director has approved it and that's what they want, then that's what goes in. And so what's great about that is you have someone that tells you, step back, take away, you're done, it's approved, let's move on. As opposed to you have to be, if you're doing your own project, it's hard to tell when is the right time to step away from it. When is the right time to say enough's enough, you're done, you're finished. And I always say it's always good to have someone that's maybe not a director, but someone who you trust as an artist that can say, hey, you know what, Travis, that looks great, don't do any more, you're gonna ruin it. Or, you know what, maybe you could push it a little bit more. So again, going back to the bigger question of like spacing and timing, it's trial and error. And the only way to know how to do it is by actually doing it. And then the arcs that come into play when you're doing your timing and spacing really play into what is the perspective or the shot or the staging that you're creating for that character, which is what I drew here. Knowing that is going to help you figure out greatly where you're going to be animating, what space of that place that you're going to be animating in. Does that answer that question? How about another one? You got another one?
Awesome. Yes, I have a fun one to end on. Maylene wants to know, what is your favorite part of the animation process?
My favorite part of the animation process is seeing it move exactly the way you saw it in your head. Which is not always the case. When you see something like that walk cycle that I did, I go, oh, that walk cycle works. My favorite part is seeing the really rough roughs and having the action, the gestural thing move and work. I'm more excited about that than actually tying it down, because at that point it gets more mechanical. But that's my favorite part or aspect of the process, I guess. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Very
Okay.
nice. Thank you so much, Travis. This was awesome to kind of go behind the scenes and see the frames that go into an animation. This was really cool. So thank you so much for this.
You're very welcome.
Alrighty, I'm gonna share my screen one more time here.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. There we go. So we have Cartoon Crunch coming up next week. We're really excited. Our mini series is kicking off on Monday, where everybody will get to see the behind the scenes of how our student animators or cartoon animations were created. It's going to be lots of fun. Visit the link in our Instagram bio to register. There will also be a link over there to register for our popcorn premiere party, which will be that Saturday. And that's where we're going to debut the final cartoon animations. It's going to be awesome. And we're really excited. So we hope everyone can join us. And I'm going to show our promotions one more time. Please take advantage of these. We have $100 on Intuos Pro Medium and save $50 on Wacom One. And we also have a $50 discount with our friends over at NX Pro on the Wacom One. Thank you so much again, Travis. This was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope this was informative. And if you guys want to check me out on Mondays, Pacific Standard Time, 6 to 9 on Twitch, and check out my YouTube channel. And when you get a chance, go to my website and subscribe for my newsletter and find out what fun stuff we're doing. Soon and very soon, I hope to be collaborating with my brother to do a live demo with him to do another collaboration. We haven't done that in about a year, so that should be exciting. So look out for that. And when you get a chance, check out Creature Art Teacher with my tutorial that I've got going on over there. And I don't know, you've got all my links, correct?
Yes, awesome. Pete will be dropping all of Travis's links in the chat, so you can follow him over there. And thanks so much again, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
All right, take care. Thank you.